All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Single Parents Daily Podcast with your hosts,
Chady Dunmore
and Evan and DeMarco. If we look exactly the same as we did the previous week, well, that's because we just recorded that one. And through the magic of technology, we've been able to do two podcasts in one. It's like government spending, two for the price of one. So as we said, if you just came off of the Trail Mix podcast, that we were going to do something a little bit more fun and exciting. And we're going to make this a quickie, no pun intended, and talk about some of our most embarrassing moments as single parents. I said mine was probably going to be in the realm of sexting. So, yeah, I think that what are yours? Let's jump into yours first. I think that's better.
I don't know. I have to kind of think about it. I would say as a single parent, I have to think about this one. I think you should go first because I know I have more than one. I'm sure we all have embarrassing stuff, but I definitely want to hear yours first since you already have a topic.
Yeah, I have a topic. So, clearly in the age of, digital dating, or just, digital relationships, there's a great deal of flirtation and ultimately, sexting that goes on, and that can be in the form of written or picture content. Now, the problem with, I guess all of that digital communication is that on occasion I would give my daughter my phone, especially if we were driving somewhere. And at a certain point, she figured out how to open up pictures. And so from the back seat of the car, she's like, "Daddy, what is this?" And I turn around and she's got the picture up. And this was a woman that I had been dating who had decided to send me a picture of herself, al dente, without clothes, however you want to say it. So, this was a moment where I literally almost drove off the road because I'm reaching back, trying to get the damn phone away from her, because there was a whole series of these pictures and they progressively got a little bit more provocative, shall we say. So what I learned quite candidly is that there's some great apps for taking some of those pictures if you decide that you want to keep them and putting them in a more secure place on your phone. But yeah, that was definitely.
And you must share what those apps are because we are all single parents who need those apps.
So Photo Vault is one. So Photo Vault is one where you can actually take pictures that you want not in your iPhone library, and it will actually pull them out of your library and put them in this app, and then it's password protected. So you can do that. That's a great app for the digital connoisseur.
Oh man!
And then I guess it brings up the question: is this
So I have to now chime in on that one because I had a boyfriend who was on tour, and also I have a teenage daughter, and I think there was a time most recently that I was just like, "That's it. We're gonna share an iCloud. I need to know what's going on in your world." And I think that was a mistake
because she got to know what was going on in your world.
And vice versa. There's some things like I just don't want to know, and it's nothing bad that she's doing. It's just stupid teenage stuff. Like they just going back. My iCloud's just getting swarmed. There was no naked pictures on anybody's, but it was just one of those things where you're just like, my daughter is seeing me screenshot just stupid shit. And also too, the fact that, I'm in a honeymoon stage still with my relationship. We're 2 years in and there's a lot of pictures going back and forth. And I remember recently where she would be like, I would tell her something. She's like, I know, I have access to your iCloud. And I'm like, oh. My God. And then I think back of pictures and again, nothing naked, but still, it's just stuff that you're like, you don't want your kids to see, or stuff that you're just like, this is super embarrassing, and vice versa to her. I made sure that she has another iCloud that I can still have access to a certain capacity. But
so this brings up an interesting question: is what is the protocol for this one, right? Because we live in this digital age. We have access to this technology. We have the ability to, especially when you've got a boyfriend on tour, when you have your daughter for a week and you can't physically be with another person, or it's the age of COVID and, you're trying to digitally date.
They have Snapchat. That's what they have.
Yeah. And we have this technology that allows us to have these digital relationships, which include, material that we don't want our kids to see. Are we being hypocrites by doing that and then, trying to tell them not to do that? Or what
100%.
is, we are?
Yes, we're
Okay.
totally being hypocrites.
So
It's
embracing
like
our
us,
hypocrisy.
Exactly. Well, I mean, on our last episode, we were talking about dressing up for each other, right? But we don't realize a lot of times on Halloween, when a lot of these younger kids are dressing up like very provocative, we've been there before. We've done it. Guys, too. Guys are flexing, showing their physique. I mean, Evan, you know that you have a great physique and you barely wear clothes because you can, right? I don't think that you do it for attention.
I don't do it for attention. Thank you for that. I really appreciate the compliment. But let's acknowledge that I do not do that for attention. It's a comfort.
I know
thing.
that. Yeah.
I'm a nudist at heart.
Yeah. But again, a lot of people wouldn't know that about you. Right. And but there's some people who are not listening to the podcast and they follow you or they see your podcast and they're like, he never wears a shirt. Does he just do that because he's in great shape? Again, it's all like people's perception, but people just do it for attention. And so when it comes down to social media and what we're doing as parents, I feel like, I think there's a certain time where we are being hypocrites because we want to be a good parent and we want to tell them to do things the right way. But sometimes, we're human. We're not going to do things the right way. We're not going to be eating perfectly all the time. We're not going to be telling our kids to go to bed, and because sometimes we don't do it ourselves.
True. And I guess then the question is when we talk about these, especially the digital communication, and you have a teenage daughter, so you're a lot closer to dealing with these type of things than I am. But is there a certain point where we say, okay, I'm going to hope that I raise my kid right with values and principles and know that there's these opportunities out there where they can engage in these kind of digital relationships where they're sharing information or they're sharing, whatnot, knowing the potential consequences of that, but knowing that that's also the world that we live in. And so, is it like, okay, well, now that you've got your driver's license or you can vote or you can buy a drink, you should legally be allowed to send a naked pic. I just don't know. What is, if we enjoy it, which we do, if we enjoy that type of interaction with someone, why can we not expect that our kids are going to want to do the same thing? And then subsequently, is that wrong?
I know. And it's scary.
Fucking A right, it is.
I know. Well, I don't, my daughter hopefully is not listening to this podcast, but, just even knowing about an app like that, I feel like they're exposed to so much more than what we know. Oh, yeah. And we know this, but I think being honest to our kids, keeping that line of communication, right? Because we learned this with, again, all the people we interview, that kids just want to be seen and heard. And as long as we keep that dialogue open and we're honest with them, whether if it's with sex, with drugs, with what's going on there with social media and apps and people who are sickos who are messaging them, that could be a potential politician, that could be a potential doctor, that could be a potential person that we know that's trying to slide in the DMs. I mean, again, we talk about this all the time with human trafficking. It is something that we have to keep the dialogue open, even if it scares the shit out of us and it scares the shit out of our kids. We have to do it. And it's unfortunate, but I feel like that's the best thing I can do as a parent is when I'm watching a movie with my daughter and it's PG-13 and there's like a sex scene where somebody's about to do oral sex on someone, right? How uncomfortable is that? Exactly. So I still, as a parent, as 14, still do that. Close your eyes. She already knows. She knows she can't cuss in front of me. She knows me as a parent. Do I tell her, you can't, I don't want you to ever watch this movie? I think that's wrong as a parent. For me, I think that I have to, she's in high school. She's going to be aware of certain things. Well, I let her know. I mean, I'm not closing her ears and stuff like that. She knows what's a certain idea of what's going on.
Spaghetti in this scene?
Exactly. But also too, I'm like, okay, fine. Now it's hard too, because what happens if she's at her friend's house and there's a parent that's not doing that, right? So, as long as she knows mommy knows it's not okay and mommy's super cool with her, but also mommy's still honest with her on what's right and wrong, that's the only thing we can do. Sorry about that.
No. I think this brings up a very interesting, an interesting, anecdotal thing is that there was the number of, I believe it was Catholic schoolgirls who admitted to partaking in oral and anal sex because they wanted to experience sexual relationships, but based off of the teachings of the Bible, they felt that premarital sex was, a mortal sin. And so what we end up with, it's kind of that same sheltered person who goes to college for their first year and drinks themselves into flunking out because they haven't had any kind of experience, any type of exposure to this. So we would love some feedback from you guys, right? Because I have no idea what I'm doing in this world, except other than trying to keep my phone away from my daughter. She now has her own iPad, which is hers. And there's YouTube Kids and that's it. But also, how do we really, deal with this, knowing that, as single parents, we're sexual beings, we have this desire to communicate or to connect with other adults. And with that comes the technological opportunities and working within that desire, but then also creating healthy habits for our kids so that they're not engaging in that behavior when they shouldn't be. And if they are, they're doing it in a way that's safe for themselves, appropriate, especially age appropriate. And, it always comes back to consequences, right? You send a naked pic, it's out there forever, right? It is forever. There's a picture of my butt out there. I guarantee it. It's on a website. I haven't found it yet, but I keep looking. I'm losing.
Well, do you have any girl siblings? Like
two sisters? Yes.
Okay. And do you have any brothers?
One brother. Yes.
So you have a fair share of what it felt like to have siblings growing up, and as far as what you guys are being exposed and whether they were older or younger and they were like advising you on certain things. But okay. So for me, I was the youngest. And so I got to learn not only through my mistakes, but my siblings' mistakes. And they were my best friends. They were all talking to me about whether if it came to the drug rape, stuff slipping into the drinks, to rape in general, sexual harassment. But, there's a lot of people out there that don't have that. There's a lot of people who are not exposed to that world, those siblings, that support. And that's where it becomes detrimental. And they're having girls who are sharing pictures of themselves to a boyfriend they thought they can trust. And then it gets passed around all in high school. And then there goes a reputation. And then there goes the depression and suicidal. I mean, it's a ripple effect. And that's totally where it's our duty as parents that, what's the course that we have to do, we have to take as raising teenagers. And I feel like this is the hardest stage because
let's teach. First of all, we need to teach men to be, boys to be respectful and, to be more like men. And if you were to ever get a picture like that, there's nothing cool with sharing that. If you've got a relationship that's built off of trust and you're sharing that type of thing, which you shouldn't be in high school anyway, there's absolutely nothing cool with sharing that with anybody else. You're just violating the trust that was built in that kind of, excuse me. It's not COVID. It's not COVID. It's not COVID.
It's like anybody who has allergies, it's a natural reaction. We say no COVID.
No COVID.
But you're right. But we don't have. It's not. There's kids who are good kids that make that mistake to still share it, not to only hurt the young girl, but they do it because they want to hype up their egos and their reputation. Totally yeah, and unfortunately, everybody gets affected by that, and not a good way. Because no one can keep their mouth shut. And it's happening now in my daughter's school. It's so sad to see how social media has affected the depression and suicidal rates from so many young kids right now, especially now during COVID. I feel like I've talked to a few therapists and I feel like the suicide rate has gone up immensely.
Totally. I mean, now we're completely reliant on digital connections and with that comes all of the problems. And then I think, let's take this one, take it back one step, but there's such a dichotomy in the marketplace about the perception of this type of content that exists out there, right? Like, Kim Kardashian's sex tape launched that $1 billion empire. So, in some capacity, some of our most idolized, which that's a whole other conversation about how pathetic that is, people are got their start by, getting a sex tape out there. So there's this,
Yeah.
there is this, oh, well, if this gets out there, then that might make me famous, that, I'm going to be more popular. And so, I think the big thing that we have to do is reframe all of this in our kids' minds is there is nothing cool about being a Kardashian or Kardashian-like. That is not the kind of attention that you should seek, period. And if and when it comes time to have that type of digital relationship with someone, make sure you're legally allowed to vote or rent a car. But B, make sure that, you do that with someone that you trust. And that's, I think that, that's gotta be the platform, I guess.
Yeah.
We need to shrink on this one. We need someone to come on and talk about this.
Yeah, definitely. Because it is something that we both have girls. This is a era where our kids are now working on a platform where we have been warned on as far as like, do not put them on the computer, do not put them on their phones. And now this is the only avenue that they can educate themselves on. So this is where we, as parents, we need the tools, we need the help to all of us to know the steps on how do we move forward and through this, because this is something where as parents, and even school, teachers, and gosh, I've talked to so many psychologists that, I have friends that are like, nobody knows how to navigate through this. This is just like a hard subject. And I mean, your daughter is younger. My daughter is a lot older. She's in high school now, and we're going through two different eras, but I'm scared for my life. I'm scared for her life.
Did you ever see Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean?
Uh-uh.
So it was one of the quintessential kind of like coming of age stories, and it was in the 50s, and then you had like Catcher in the Rye, which was still kind of that same quintessential coming of age. And what happened between the 50s and like the 80s and 90s when we kind of came of age, there wasn't a lot of change, right? There wasn't a lot of technological advances. So the same issues that kids were dealing with in the 50s were the same issues that we were dealing with in like 1990, right? Mm-hmm. But the internet, cell phones, this digital age has created a whole new set of problems. And so this is a new frontier where we just don't know. And the social dilemma, as we talked about in our last podcast, Trail Mix, was really pointed out that there's some serious psychological ramifications of all of this. And so we just have to be aware of that. But I think we definitely need an expert on this one to come back. We would love to hear from you guys how you're dealing with this, right? Have you had any problems with kids sharing this kind of content? If so, what did you do about it? What are the rules that you have at your house? What are you doing to proactively try to make sure that your kid does not end up in, one of the things that Chady was talking about, which is more of the depression, suicide position, mm-hmm. not necessarily the reputation. Because I think that it's bad, but it's, by lunch, it's yesterday's news, right? Things like that don't have the staying power that they once did simply because everybody's so ADD.
Yeah, this is something that we need to talk definitely with the professional and kind of hear more of their insight as far as like, other than them being seen and heard, what are the tools and what are the steps that we can do as parents to help them, surpass these stages as far as going through the COVID, going through staying at home. And not only that, just social media warriors. Like, there are so many people, I'm calling them not social media warriors, keyboard warriors, mm-hmm. right? Because there's people making fake accounts, and I feel like it's a culprit to a lot of depression that's going on right now.
And look, I know a lot of people who seek validation through likes and comments, engagement rates, and that's no way to live. And so what we have to do now is set a path for our kids that make sure that they couldn't give two left testicles about the number of likes that they get or the mm-hmm. engagement rate or who said what on their page. And that's easier said than done. Celebrities used to talk about the challenges of being a celebrity in that, you're constantly under fire. And social media has kind of brought that to the every person, right? Like, you can post a beautiful picture of a sunrise and someone is still going to, say mean shit about it.
Yeah.
God forbid you post a picture of yourself in, a bikini or something like that. Now you've opened up the door to, unnecessary validation from people who are just looking at you as an object, and unnecessary criticism from people who are looking at you in some other capacity. And so you just can't win.
Mm-mm. No. And unfortunately, that's where, as parents, we have to kind of just be like, a lot of the therapists have told us, we need to listen to our kids. Unfortunately, even though we want to give them the guidance on what's wrong and right, I think making sure that dialogue with our kids and sharing that and just kind of hearing them, like, where are they at? Where are they thinking? Because we know what's right and wrong, but sometimes they're unaware of that. And before we play police officer, we kind of have to hear them out, like what's going on in their head as far as what's making them feel kind of on the edge or making them feel off. Because, as me having a platform on social media, oh, thank you. Should have had that on earlier. Yeah, let there be light. Thank you. I didn't want to interrupt the interview, but I try to keep that dialogue. How was your day? What's going on? What's the gossip going on? Even that, and I don't want to say that, and I don't want to be that person where like I'm instigating as far as like gossip, but I also want to know what comes out of my daughter's mouth. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's something not a big deal. Maybe it's something her saying, well, this is what's going on. And if it's not helping my daughter, if I can help someone else and she's close to, I want to be that person. So unfortunately, as parents, we should be the parents, and there has to be at least a 10 to 15, 20% friend, because I feel like our kids will be more open to communicating and sharing stuff that they normally wouldn't, because we're a parent.
Another great topic, the friend versus the parent. What is the appropriate role? That will be one that we will definitely tackle coming up, because I think that every parent, in the modern age has said that, they want to be their kid's friend, and we still have to be their parents. So, if nothing else, we've had two great podcasts right now. I know that you have to go, but we've opened up a can of worms on a bunch of other things that we need to talk about. So
I know, I'm excited.
We're going to continue to either podcast in person or digitally, and they seem to be working. And, the best part is that I still don't have to put on pants.
You're awesome. You're always so transparent. Because I know you have no pants on right now.
Totally do not.
Well, thank you so much for just opening this dialogue with, other parents, because I think this is so important for all of us to feel supported during these times.
Yeah, guys, look, bottom line is Single Parent Daily was designed to make sure that you feel like you're not alone. And the reality is that you're not. It's, even as if you're married, you feel alone right now because of COVID. If you're divorced, you feel completely alone. If you're, if you're a single parent, we just feel like, we feel like we're on an island sometimes. And so, the truth is that you're not. And as much as we've been bashing digital, I think the truth is that we're here for you through ones and zeros in the digital ethernet. So reach out to us. Let us know what you need. Let us know if you want to chat. Hit us up. We're here for you. And more than anything, this is a community that's designed to inspire and educate parents to be the best that they possibly can be, so that we can raise happy, healthy, well-adjusted kids who, aren't sending a lot of nude pictures out there into the internet.
Exactly. Not that we just open what app that is.
Oh God.
What do we do?
Well, I'm going to go drink myself into a stupor.
I'm like, edit that out.
Sentiment.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. And I'm sure we'll have some potpourri for the next couple episodes.
Potpourri and trail mix.
Exactly.
See you guys next week.